this computer. Thank you, American lady. You absolute gem, you. Right. We comfy? We got everything we need? We got food, drink, water, crack, everything? I know I've got mine.
All blessed.
Definitely have my cracked phone, but, you know, that's because I've got no sense of personal responsibility and choose to not take care. But I tell you what, I will take care of the audience, because I'm going to say hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this edition of the Halcyon Show. My name's Lorne Risley, host of the show, and today we have something devilishly horrific, nay sinister. It lurks among us, and it's not my current Twitter feed. In fact, we have with us a renaissance man of sorts. He's a fellow content creator and interviewer, a lover of the horror film genre, and an esteemed battle rapper, having competed for over 10 years with the likes of Shuffle T, O'Shea, Gaspuff, Soweto Kinch, just to name a few, over his 70 battle repertoire. But even more impressive still is that he's now embarked on a career as an indie game developer. Let's see if the man's love of horror and entertainment translates into a scarily good guest. Fucking hell, it's fucking Kinell!
Yes, lad, how are we?
I'm fabulous. How are you?
Always good, mate. Always good.
We're going to settle some beef first, I'm afraid. And I know you're pissed off about this, and I just need to apologise. I have straight up jacked your channel's aesthetic, it turns out, when I redevised mine. We both went for the neon pink, and when I saw you do that, I went, oh no, I've just rendered all new ones. Oh no. I mean, that was because I loved the gimmick of it when I saw it, and I was like, this is really cool. This is, wait, what's mine? Oh, bollocks. So isn't that annoying? And the other thing as well, so you're a lover of battle rap, you're an interviewer, and you're into gaming content.
I am.
Doesn't that sound familiar, audience of Halcyon Show? Interviewer, game content creator, and battle rap fan. We've led parallel lives in terms of our content creation career. You need to tell me how that happened.
I think I went completely backwards with it, you know. I don't know, like way back in the day before anyone ever heard of me, I was a DJ, and I got into that, and I was always like the digging guy. I was like the guy who had the tunes no one else had. I was playing on vinyl and that, and like DJ, and like that was the thing for me, was getting some dope shit that no one else heard of. Like flipping, like where the only place you could get it is I had to go to like Manchester or London or whatever, and go to the shop, which was the day job of the guy who made the record, to buy his test pressing off him and just get dope shit like that. And like, I think it was the when Blauan did that, one tune with the brandy sample that came out like on a white label. Flipping, like I had a gig that night, and I went to where was it? Eastern Bloc in Manchester to pick it up. Got it. Headed back for the gig. And this was like when digital DJing was just sort of breaking through. People had been using CDs for a while, but it was when people started doing controllers. And I'd like fucking got up extra early in the morning to travel to get this record. And the cunt before me played a YouTube rip of it. And I thought, this is it, like fucking digging's over now. If you could do that, then flipping, it's not a thing. So I drifted away from DJing, and my rapping was like flipping, just like in uni. Me and my mates just used to like have the shittest freestyle battles in the world, like over like a fucking like a drum and bass mix or something, put on some fucking like a DJ Crust or something. And like occasionally I'd get on the mic, because I did a lot of drum and bass gigs, like when an MC no-showed, or like not really fucking I wasn't hyper lyrical with it. I was just like calling for rewinds and just more of a host MC. So I like fucking drifted into like spoken words for like very briefly, when I was just doing basically rap rounds, and fucking bumped into Luke Euphorical in Nottingham, and that was how I did my first battle. I got into doing that for years, and fucking it was a hell of a honeymoon with it, because then I got onto King of the Ronalds, and I was battling like most weeks. Like it was fucking like wake up with a hangover on Monday, fucking go to work, go to the pub straight after work, write 3 rounds in the pub, flipping do like few days memorizing, then Saturday morning go to some city I've never been before, flipping do the gig, flipping end up partying there, go home, and like flipping wake up somewhere with a hangover on Sunday, crawl back home, collapse into bed, and repeat the cycle. Like literally battling every week. Like, so I was doing it a lot, and like there was like a very short transition phase between like that and the DJing. I was still active DJing for like the first part of like me battle rap thing, and then COVID hit, and like when I was supposed to be battling Big J in what should we call it, in one of Hulk's events, which had a really good card, which couldn't happen, and that was like when that gig got cancelled, like, because like I was battling in Brighton like the week before COVID shut down. It was like the first time you'd see a mask in public, and like when that got shut down, it was like the first time in my like adult life that fucking I hadn't had a gig that I had to get ready for, and fucking like fucking I was going nuts because like fucking my whole adult life, if it was like finding new records or finding a mix would work, like literally since a teenager to like fucking like I was 39 when COVID hit, there's never been a point in my life when I haven't had to prepare for something. So I just had to do something. So I just started doing some stuff on what should we call it, YouTube, like really shitty videos on my phone, like talking about horror films and that, and you know, kind of like reformatted it as a podcast. I was doing that for a bit, and like also got into gaming over COVID, because like fucking like I say, like me mates in uni, it was like PlayStation in the living room. And like I used to really love all the horror games, all the Silent Hill 2s and the Project Zeros and them ones. But it'd just be like one of my mates on the controller, and we'd all just be getting stoned and watching it. So I always really loved that era of gaming. But I never had my own PlayStation or anything like that. So I was getting a Switch in lockdown. That was when I first started like actually playing games for myself and then going back through things. And as I got more into like the horror games, Resident Evils and that kind of thing, I got into a little bit of streaming, which was all right, and fucking didn't really get on too well with it, like, because it's a lot of fucking hours in it. But because of that, fucking like I bought like a little like 400 quid PC for to stream the Xbox on. Then I found I could play like lightweight fucking PC games. So we got into like there's these two Japanese brothers that call themselves Chiller's Art. They make like these like horror games on Steam set in Japan, like they're like hour, 2 hours long or whatever. And like bearing in mind I'm a lifelong horror fan, you know, flipping always like, you know, watched fucking horror films most days for like, you know, fucking since I was about like fucking 13, 14 or something like that. And like, so like I love the shit, but it's very rare it scares me. These games scared me. Like fucking these games like fucking like actually fucking got under my skin. They're these kind of games where it's kind of like a job simulator to start off with, and you forget you're playing a horror game and then it switches on you. And like I thought this is like an amazing form of storytelling, because this is a level of integration that I could never really get my head around. So like last September I like downloaded Unity when I found out it was free. Had to muck around with that and made my first little 15-minute mini game like in 12 weeks, which I put out over Christmas. But as I was going through that and understood the nature of things, I realized like that I could like flipping like tell stories that I'd never been able to tell. I've always been a storyteller, like, you know, like flipping when I was like, you know, making music or something, or writing lyrics. I've always been a storyteller of some forms, but there's things I've never been able to like really like express before. Like, because I was in a coma for a month in 2007, and like that was a very weird time for me, like, because like I've got like quite vivid memories of dreaming in a coma, and the whole time it's like that dream logic where you'll be in a familiar place but there's a door that isn't normally there and you go through it, and like reality isn't quite correct, but it's a dream and you just accept it and you go with it. And like I was living like that for a month, and what should we call it? When I came out, I'd like formed some quite strong memories about people that I had a close relationship with in a coma that didn't exist and so forth. And like I remember, my first when I came out the coma, I had a tracheotomy, couldn't speak, and fucking I'd lost like all my muscles, like fucking I couldn't like move, but to pick up a pen. It was a week and a half. What should we call it? Being awake out the coma and not knowing what was real and what wasn't from my memories, when I could pick up a pen and write on a piece of paper something for my mum. And like the first thing I wrote was, how was Kylie and Sonny's Christmas? Kylie being my wife and Sonny being my son from another relationship. And my mum's like, I don't know who these people are, like, and still can't talk, pipe in me neck, and flipping. What should we call it? The doctor kind of figured out what happened and came back in. And my mum had to tell me that my wife and my son that I remember spending time with didn't exist. You know, it was some fucking like Ghost in the Shell shit, like, and fucking like, and the thing is, like because of like my taste in sort of dark dystopian sort of media, that informed like the way I was viewing the world in this month of dreaming. Like I've got long memories of like long corridors of just filing cabinets and things, like, because that's the kind of media I've always kind of consumed, that kind of thing. And I've never really been able to like, I've tried writing songs about it, I've tried writing essays and shit about it. I've never been able to say this doesn't capture the fucking feeling of like what it was. But as I like flipping developed with the game design and like got into things like Layers of Fear or some and stuff, like I realized like it's within my capabilities to actually represent that sort of questioning of reality and not knowing your own mind. And because like it was months of memories, like flipping, hang on, was that real or was it? It took me months to like get right, and it's like I'm still haunted by it, like. And like I realized that fucking eventually this is like a story that I can tell, or like I can convey these feelings in a story I'm telling through like a first person horror game. And so I carried on with Unity for a bit, and I decided I wanted to really invest in it. So I bought a computer, which I'm using now, which is a serious piece of kit. Fucking, what should we call it? With a big fucking ray tracing fucking graphics card in there, 64 gig, all the fucking hard stuff, the heavyweight material. And around that time, I met someone that I knew from a horror film festival, who like does a bit of work with like indie production. They kind of like film me, clue me up on some things, basically saying like you should probably ditch Unity because Unity as a platform have made some bad decisions. And what should we call it? Like, and even if you really like it on Unity, fucking you have access to tools that are much better. But because so many people are leaving Unity, when you get to the point that you want to collaborate with people, there's not going to be as many collaborators as about, because everyone else has left. So if you're because I was going to like learn the the fucking high definition render pipeline, and she's like, you've got to learn that much new there. It's a good time to like move to another platform. And I've seen you've been doing a bit with Blender and that, like I've been getting into a lot of my 3D modeling. So it's probably a time to go for Unreal. And I assumed Unreal would be a lot more complicated than Unity. But actually, if you have a very heavyweight computer, it's actually a lot more easy to use. And I just fell in love with it and found I could make short films. And like, I found I could fucking like it's been months, but like it's been months now. This was March, and like we're August the time it's going out, like, and at this point I'm getting to the point where I can visualize something and create it. And flipping, like, when you hit those breakthrough moments, if it's in making music, or like any form of art, when you have the idea and then you have the skills and the ability to translate it, what's in your head, and you look at it and go, yes, this was the vision. Like flipping, when you get to that point, it's like it's an amazing feeling. Like I've never like really been able to get there with music. Like flipping, like hearing something in my head and being able to translate it, because I was never that good with music theory. And flipping, like I say, I only got diagnosed for ADHD and medicated, which has been a big help, like a year and a half ago. What's we call, the whole time I was like working with Ableton and stuff, I'd never really like put the hours in per session that you need to really grind stuff out. So but yeah, that's how we got to this point. And flipping expired meds, wishlist that shit on Steam.
That's half my goddamn cheat sheet of questions, Kinell. I'm not happy with you. You've covered about 8 of my 20 questions in your answer there. You're an interviewer, man. You know you're killing me here. Like, unbelievable. Just succinctly summed everything up that should have taken an hour into 10 minutes. What are we going to do now for an hour?
Chat shit, mate. That is what I do.
I'm psyching you out. I got questions. Because there's a couple of things actually you've touched on there that I didn't know that are interesting. Like, for instance, Control is a game I became a fan of for a little while, and it's one that I saw that you streamed. And one of the things that I liked about Control in particular was the fact that it has, I wouldn't call them horror elements, but certainly suspense elements, tense elements, uneasy elements. But the idea of it being like dream induced, like everything is surreal yet makes sense, yet it's uneasy, but it's in this world that's sort of trying to make sense of it. I really enjoyed that concept. And again, you're talking about sort of the lucid dreaming style of things, which is obviously a big inspiration for things like fucking Terminator, Inception, and a bunch of other really high concept movies that people like. They still struggle to reconcile how good they are, even though they make them feel uneasy watching them. And it's kind of a unique thing. So, which leads me into, and again, he beat me to the punch by like 1 minute, Expired Meds, which obviously the trailer I've seen. You're aiming to have it done, hopefully next year. Tell me about that as far as what the concept... Obviously, I think you've touched on some of the issues there, but talk to me about, like, what was the crystallizing moment to say, right, this is the idea to go with, and talk to me about what you're trying to do with the game.
Right, like the important thing to realise is that effectively this is a prelude, because at the point I said I spoke to a friend of mine that was like sort of clued me up on some industry things, because I was coming at it strictly from an artist standpoint, and like I've got here like what should we call it, like a full notebook with flipping all these kind of outlines for like a kind of like sort of Resident Evil like scale of game, like in terms of like, you know, many huge sections and quite a narrative and flipping all this sort of stuff going on that sort of revolves around what should we call it?
I mean, I can give you and the viewers the synopsis if you'd like. If that would help. I mean, just in case you don't know what we're talking about. Expired Meds is a first-person psychological horror game where you play as a female protagonist traversing creepy and atmospheric liminal spaces, solve mind-bending puzzles, and ever-shifting maze environments to uncover the truth about who you are and how you came to be here.
Yeah, pretty much. and the thing is, flipping what should we call it? That whole big thing that I was describing there, the big notebook, the Bible there, is flipping that all takes place after you've found out who you are and how you came to be there. But I found out that like the scale of what I was doing, because like it's something I want to get be on across all formats. I want it on PlayStation, I want it on Xbox and that. And I found out like that I'd be able to access like Arts Council funding and so forth, like get a few grand towards it, and like I've had other people speak to me about possible like sources of funding I can access, and like all these things are sources of funding that you can access if you're established. And what you call it, you need to prove that you've got you've got the skills to pay the bills and so forth. So I was basically said you need to make any game and get it out, and then you can get the funding for this very elaborate plan that's like a lot of work, and mostly work that I can manage myself with some assistance in some places. But like, you know, I am capable of making most of what it consists of, but because of the scale of it, flipping having something available in stores will make it there. And so because it was a thing of like, I've got to put something together, I thought, well, I want it to be part of the story. So it's almost kind of a prelude, like flipping. It's sort of leading into it, because there's a lot of like discovery and that kind of thing, and finding out answers and finding out truth and questioning reality in that central thing. But this first thing is going to be getting to the point when you have to look for those answers effectively. I got to be quite vague about it, like because like that's what the game is. But it's been very interesting because like I found out with a lot of horror games, the thing that separates like the good ones from the bad ones is the depth, is the emotional depth of the story, and sort of like the lore behind it. Like I've been watching like Resident Evil content creators, Silent Hill content creators, all this kind of thing, and like they love the notes and that, don't they? They love the notes and finding out the little bits of information, all the other parts of the story, filling in this sort of background and making it take place.
Five Nights is a great example of something that was almost constructed entirely by the fandom. Like there were hints and things and places, but entire fandoms are created just to try and figure out the lore of the game before you even start playing the game.
Yeah, and like so that was an interesting thing, because like when I went to start the expired meds, like flipping, I already had the big huge thing that I've been working on with like I don't have to build up a load of lore because I've got the lore for it here. I'm flipping like there's going to be lots of things in it that you don't even think are going to mean anything at the minute, and it's like some atmosphere, and you can try and figure out what it relates to, but the answers exist. You just what should we call it? Not going to get them yet, and then, but it's going to be like nice and flexible that way, because I might see someone's interpretation and it might go, oh, that's actually something worth incorporating. And like I'm probably going to end up cutting off another one of your questions here, but like when I first started like putting together like the initial test things about it, is one thing I found. Like is because like I'm doing all the design and all the mechanics and all this kind of thing. I found like I'd done a podcast with Respect BA like just before, and I was giving him the pitch and talking what should we call it, about what I wanted the whole project to be like. And like what should we call it, at the time I was talking about like certain modes of storytelling. I've got to be quite vague in it, but like flipping, everyone will be glad that I didn't give it away. And like what should we call it, I told him about it. He goes, oh yeah, that sounds sick, man. And I started doing an initial like sort of mini build in Unity, like, and what should we call it, just after Christmas he messaged me and goes, oh, I've got this dead cool idea, and mentioned something about it. And that was when I realized that as I was building it technically, I'd flipping like trimmed away loads of like the art that was like why the whole thing was a good concept, because I was like staring at it from an entirely technical standpoint, and like I was doing things that I knew how to do. So that's why I brought Respect BA on board, because I want something who's looking at it from a completely artistic standpoint. You know, we're flipping like if he comes and says like, could we do this or do this, and he doesn't know what I'm technically capable of, that or what mechanics I've already got built. Like flipping, I could say, well, that's a great idea. I'm going to figure out if I can. You don't think like that when you're just building things. You don't think about outside the box ideas and go down rabbit holes like that. Or sometimes you do when you get distracted and then you never get anything finished ever. So, it's good to have a great creative mind flipping like keeping that outside of the box thinking in there, because that's what's going to be the difference. And BA is one of the greatest creative fucking minds around.
Well, you've mentioned there something that I think is important to touch on. So I've interviewed game developers in the past, and they all have a common thread, and they've all developed different games, different art styles, different, budgets, all the rest of it. But they all have a common thread. They all have some kind of experience they're in trying to impart on the gamer. So it might be speed, it might be, power fantasy, it might be storytelling, it might be any number of different things that's communicated through the genre of gaming. What are you trying to convey? Because you mentioned earlier, like there's something about gaming that you're able to articulate better than you are with music or with perhaps battle rap. What are you trying to get the gamer to experience and the player to kind of, the journey you're trying to take them on or the feeling you're trying to induce? Like what goes through your mind when you think about what you want them to feel?
You made a very accurate observation earlier when you brought up control, because that's the thing that I'm able to do with in Unreal that I haven't been able to do with words or music, and it's dream logic. When everything's like locked into hyper realism, then this is it. Like dream logic's something that's always appealed to me. It's like always appealed to me in films. Like I really like things like Jacob's Ladder and that kind of thing. Because when you're locked into realism, then everything has to follow logically. So that's when you get plot holes and all that kind of thing. But with dream logic, things can operate outside the box. It's very hard to do, particularly, you couldn't really apply that to like battle rap, because I have to say something, and what I'm talking about needs to crystallize instantly in your head while you're in the room to get that reaction out of you. And with music, you have to be to do something like that. You have to be way more musically capable than I am. Flipping, particularly being from a dance music background, because you have to be able to dance to it. Flipping, I bumped into Soweto Kinch on the weekend. He was outside Euston when I was there on Sunday. I was having a chat with him. It's like a running joke I have with him. It's like, I'd love jazz if I understood it, but I don't, because I don't understand what all these time signatures are. I grew up listening to jungle. I'm jungle and hip hop. I'm 4/4 beats, I'm 4/4 time signatures. I don't understand anything outside of that, and so I could never really communicate anything musically outside of a dance floor structure of 16 bar sections of 4 bar loops. It's regimented, but yeah, dream logic and surreality and it's not about jump scares. It's about something's not right. It's about
I'm glad you said that.
As a fan of The Shining.
Yeah, I do enjoy that movie. Yeah,
it's even when there's nothing particularly bad after there's a constant sense of unease in that comes from the wild design decisions of like Stanley Kubrick, because if you look at the different sections of the Overlook Hotel, it shouldn't work.
Yeah, and it's designed to feel uneasy. The designs of the carpets, the architecture, it's all designed to feel like it's enclosing and expanding, that it's never ending, it's maze-like. I mean, the other thing in horror as well is like, and I'm glad you mentioned this idea of inducing unease through sort of subliminal or passive ways. Is horror does that really well. Horror has a passive way of scaring you without you even knowing. Some people don't realize why they are scared of Halloween until you watch it back and you realize Jason's in the background almost all of the time, and you go, and it makes you immediately like, oh, I knew there was something not right, but it was there the whole time. But it's the subtlety, it's creeping, it's ever present and yet completely invisible. I guess the question I had is like, is part of the game design that you get to have that sort of overarching sense of unease threaded of a game? Because I mean, how can you do that in any other medium really? It's kind of a unique thing in film and gaming.
Yeah, like flipping, very much so. Like, and not many people have been able to do it well in film, but like the people who have done it well have like done incredible things with it. Like, you know, I am thinking about The Shining, and I am thinking about like things like, it's cliche now, but like when The Sixth Sense first came out, and like even things like The Usual Suspects or something. There was that point in the early 90s when loads of films had really good endings. And normally the ending would turn out that Kevin Spacey was a creep. But yeah, it's like that whole thing about like, what I realized I could do is like, particularly with like the notes that you'd find in games and that, and how you create things, and like things can trigger things. So I'm doing a lot of videos that might not make logical sense while you're watching them, because I've got quite into like analog horror and ARGs and all this kind of thing. And flipping, it hasn't gone live yet, but there's going to be elements of that. The protagonist of what should we call it, the game, it's got like it's triggered to go. It's not quite there yet, but she's into urban exploring and that kind of thing. And like what should we call it, like I've got her YouTube channel, and I'm not going to link to it. It's going to be a thing for people to find. And there's going to be elements like that in. And like I was thinking about how like when you take in new information, like the world around you effectively does change. Like even if you don't understand that information, the way you interpret the world is going to be slightly different for you having that information. And like that was something like, you know, I could put in these videos that maybe they don't make sense, or maybe they will make sense like down the line. But like in a dream, like if something's changing your perception of the world, it's changing the world. So like you might not think that a videotape that you found and watched has flipping given you any information, but maybe the world has changed in a way that you can access something you couldn't access before. Like you know, like flipping how certain pieces of information could allow you to access a part of your mind that by like connecting things together that you wouldn't have previously thought. And like that's one thing why I really like sort of like multi-syllabic writing. Like it's because like flipping when you find those things, and like when you find like a pattern of words that matches, and then you can correct and connect them together, and then that connection forms an idea that wouldn't have existed without those two parts. Even though you weren't trying to think of that idea, you have it. It's like being able to connect the unrelated things will take your mind to other places.
Here's a question I don't know if I could ever ask another guest, because this is unique to horror, or rather the more sinister style of storytelling.
Yeah.
In comedy, you test the joke by seeing if people laugh. It's either funny or it isn't. In music, you test it by basically seeing if people vibe with it, if they dance to it, if they go it. And in battle rap, same thing, if they react to it. how do you go about taming and tailoring your experience from a horror perspective? Like, you're always riding that line between being hokey and over the top and a bit campy with the horror, like, oh, it's a big murder, all the rest of it, with it being boring. Like, there's a room and nothing's in it. And, okay, what's scary about that? You're having to find, like, almost again, and kind of stretch it, stretch it, stretch it, and stretch it until the audience almost can't take the tension anymore. But, like, how does one go about that? How do you judge it for yourself that you're on the right path for the experience you're trying to take them on?
By relating things to like sort of real life, like when you start out as any form of artist, if you're a comedian or whatever, what should we call it? If you're a comedian, if you're what should we call it? Like if you're writing bars or whatever, the first things you write are like trying to put your spin on like flipping things that have made you feel a certain way, like you're trying to do your version of what you find funny or your version of what made you think fucking hell, like all those kind of things. And it's the same kind of thing, and like that's why like a lot of people will gravitate towards like flipping jump scares, because that's like there's all these links in my head between comedy, rap, and horror, which is why like you speak to so many really good rappers, like your Frankie Frasers, your Respect the A's, these kind of people. They're what should we call it? They're also capable. They're capable of being very funny, and they're also into horror films as well, because ultimately, like great writing in all of those fields is about the setting up of it's all punchlines in one way or another. You know, it might be something drawn out to set an expectation and then switch it on you, twisting the tail, or it might just be a 1-2. And like 1-2s are the easiest thing to construct, and that's a jump scare. That's a one-liner joke. So that's the easiest thing to construct, but the construction translates between the mediums and between the emotions you're trying to reach.
And again, I think that's unique to horror in that sense, because again, it's comedy. I think is very subjective, but ultimately everyone gets a joke or they don't. Music, if it's literally a dead cat being swung in a room versus an orchestral symphony, people can denote the difference. Horror's a weird one because I think it touches people in different ways. It makes them experience different ways, and gaming even more so, because there's that interactivity that you can both use for your own devices. Like some games have played with that concept of the more you play, the scarier it gets, because the more you're entwining yourself in the story. And then you get live streamers who are just making it their business to never be scared by anything. And then if you can get them, you're like, gotcha. Now we're onto something. I guess the biggest question and the biggest takeaway from your game development of Expired Meds in particular is, what challenges have you faced? Because again, you said you can realize and conceptualize things more easily, but what challenges have you faced in hemming things down? Because I know that's a problem in battle rap. Like, you have a million ideas, million angles, but you got to make it palatable. You got to condense it so it hits hard, the reactions are sharp. How do you condense all of the lore you've developed, all of the ideas you have for the game, all these cool ideas and moments and shit you want, but into a cohesive, contained experience? How do you go about that?
Like, I think, like, what should we call it? The thing that the way to look at things is that you're never doing something only once. Like flipping. The tendency is when you're making something and it's your first like big project with anything, or like even if it's like your first battle, a lot of people do this. They want to get every idea they've ever had into there. Like what should we call it? What is it? You've got your they say you're writing your first album for your whole life up to that point. You're making your first film for your whole life up to that point. Like what should we call it? You're writing your first 20 minutes comedy set for your whole life up to that point. So like the tendency is to like force too much in there. But like the realization is like if you're an artist, if you're an independent artist that's like you know, if you're a battle rapper, if you're a comedian, is that you're never only going to be doing it once. Like, I look at it like the difference between Rob Zombie's first and second films, like fucking like House of a Thousand Corpses. He's doing so much in it, like he's fucking like, oh, we're going to have animation here, and we're going to have this, which is a tribute to this, and fucking this, and I'm going to get this actor, and he's trying to get everything he's because, like, you know, he's thinking like, I might only ever get to make one film, and like, I definitely get that with making a film because not everyone wants to give you fucking millions of dollars to make a film, and like, so I get why you do that with that. But then, what should we call it? When he gets the Devil's Rejects, he's like, okay, I'm just going to do what I need for this project. Because, you know, flipping, if I don't get the idea into this, I can use it somewhere else. I can do more things. And it's more like albums where I don't have to put every idea into every song because I can, like, do it as a different song of the album. Or I can have a whole nother next album that's a completely different theme. So once I realized that I don't have to do everything in one game, I you know, because I own the means of production with this shit, and like I'm not going to like I will be able to make another game after this, flipping where like I don't need anyone to give me the funding or the say so. I could still do something, flipping. And like, you know, maybe the smaller ideas that I, you know, like flipping. At some point, I might just bang out a little. Like I've got multiple projects on the go. Like sometimes I have a cool idea for a sequence, but instead of like forcing it into a cut scene, maybe I'll like make a little like flipping like 30-second video and put it on Insta and then stick that on TikTok, and then that gets some follows and that gets some things. And it's advertising this, so. That's one thing because you know, I like doing like weird little videos for little monsters. And I like these cool liminal space things, but you know, if it doesn't need to be in the game, it doesn't need to be in this game. It doesn't even need to be in a game. I could just make stuff. I could just make more shit. And like fucking, so it's good to be like, I've been through a lot of fucking art forms before I got here. I've made music, I've played DJ sets, I've written lyrics. I've what should we call it? Like I've done a lot of battles, so at that point, I knew from the offset, like I'm just going to like tell this story with only what needs to be in it.
I flipped a coin in my head, and I'm going this direction because I'm being selfish right now. What's it like being a guest instead of a host? Because you've hosted your fair share of guests, my friend. You've established yourself as a fairly formidable podcast host. What's it like being on the other side? Because I can't bear it. Couldn't bear the thought of being someone's guest. But how do you find being on another podcast?
It's so much less fucking DMs. You know what it fucking is, man. Like fucking for every like one podcast you put out with a guest, you've asked flipping like 10 or 15. And fucking like, what should we call it? None of them were straight yeses or no's. It was conversations and people couldn't make it. Like, fucking, it's fucking great just being able to just log in and do the talking. But like, I've been like guest on like a lot of other kind of like podcasts and all. Like, done like, been on another one pod a couple of times. Like, because I know like people from the Northwest comedy scene and that. So I've been on like comedy pods, just like chatting about wanking and fucking shit like that. And, you know, all this kind of thing, and flipping. I still pay rent on that fucking pod. Still pay me subs on a fucking podcast studio. So fucking, I haven't been able to like do as much of that as like I really like the in-person pods. It's fucking great. Fucking like like you know, like now I'm looking at reuses of that because flipping I've figured out recording motion capture on there's not going to be much characters and conversations in expired meds, but there will be in the next game. And like now I can record motion capture and like facial motion capture. You couldn't do that with a fucking iPad a year ago. You needed a fucking studio and fucking like the white ping pong balls and the mapping and that. Now you can do it with an iPad Pro. And like I already have a studio with a Rodecaster, soundproof walls, and comfy places. So if I want to like have a cutscene with a couple of characters talking, I could just put the people there, and we can have they can have the conversation. They can play out the role. So like flipping like a lot of that's going to get repurposed. So like flipping like so even though I haven't been in the podcast studio much lately, it's suddenly become this incredible tool that I have access to that most indie developers don't. So I'm looking forward to doing something with that. There's going to be elements of it, but it's only going to be like maybe one or two characters that you're going to see talking in this, like, and not fully illustrated. But we're going to have our main character, who is here's an exclusive for you, because I'm trying to keep it mysterious online, like in terms of the advert. So I haven't like put credit to who's doing what. But it's Jackie, wife of Adam Fellman, aka Most Prob, who's playing the main character for the game. And so I'm going to be like doing a bit of motion capture work with her, like, and but yeah, like, so none of that was about podcasting, what you asked me about, but like, yeah, it's quite nice, like, not having to fucking like sort out the appointments.
The man stays on brand is what he does. He's trying to shift a game here, folks, and he's staying on brand, and I am here for it. But here's the thing with that, right? I mentioned it in the intro, and I meant it. You strike me as a content renaissance man. You seem to pick up your skills, apply them to something you're passionate about. Pick up your skills, apply it to something you're passionate about. You tend to go where you feel the wind blowing. Okay. Now the question I have about that is, how do you maintain the same? Because again, the other thing I mentioned is that you're prolific. You tend to graft quite hard in the things that you apply yourself to. How do you take passion for one thing and then reapply it so often? Like, most people want to stay with one thing even if they start to despise the thing, because it's that thing of, oh man, I've got to start again, I've got to learn new things and blah blah blah. You've just said it there. Oh man, I get to learn how to do this. This is a new thing that I didn't know I could do. I get to learn that. Like, you seem still very engaged. How have you managed that?
Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It's literally that, mate. But yeah, it's flipping. I've got the old Elvans, so now I'm actually medicated for it. I can like actually focus on things a lot more. But like I'm like, it hasn't stopped me being ADHD, so I do become fascinated with things and need to know more. Like flipping, like, this is all an extension of that rabbit hole when I was playing that Chiller's Art game and it on a stream, and it flipping scared me because I forgot I was playing a horror game. You know, it's like, I want to know how this works. How did they make it? What? This is just two guys. It's not like a big studio like Konami, like, or fucking Capcom. It's just two guys just making their own shit. And like flipping, that's it. I want to know how things work, and there's things I've picked up and dropped and all that kind of thing. But when I find something, I'll chuck everything into it because I want to know everything. Like, I want to know how things work. And as flipping technology improves, like you know, you could start bringing skills across. Like flipping, like the thing is about video editing. Like, it's, you know, I sort of like I'm not a particularly good video editor, but like, I didn't have to adapt to how the software worked too much because of my familiarity with Ableton for making music on it. So even though I didn't, I put like a weird video like where I like did one of my little short sort of horror clips like recently. I put a video after it about how I did the sound design with Ableton, and you wouldn't use Ableton for sound design. It doesn't make sense to do it that way. But because I already had some software where I knew how to get it to do this thing or this thing, you know, I just took what was already on my computer and where I already knew where the keyboard shortcuts are, and flipping like was able to apply it. So like all the passion of like all the passion and effort I put into things that flipping like didn't work out as a thing of like the skills have come over, and like the tools I had have come over, and I've been able to like adapt to certain things quite quickly because I've already like if you really put the graft into like learning some form of software, or like just understanding how certain things work, really understanding what's going on under the hood, then that'll often like enable you to like get a head start on other things. Like
I'd be drawn and quartered if I didn't at least ask one question about the thing that I think acquainted me to you. In fact, I think the first time I ever saw you was in a little battle against some guy. Let me check my notes. Shuffle T? Never heard of him. Battle rap.
yeah,
The battling of the rapping. The rapping and the battling. Let me ask you, because obviously I think you've probably... I think you've done enough battles now to be considered an esteemed member of the community. But obviously the game developing aspect is going to be becoming more and more prevalent because it's clear you have a fucking ton of passion of it. What does the future of battle rap have for you? Do you see yourself still battling in the future? Do you want to continue battling? Is there anything left for you to prove or do as far as UK battle rap is concerned? How do you see yourself in the scheme of things at the moment?
flipping I'm kind of like what's it called, like there's like people who are like really invested in like the scene and that, and I'm not invested like that, but I love battling, like flipping like, so I think I'm always going to be battling. Like I like what's it called, at time I just had the semi-final with Unanimous, and what's it called, I did not win that battle, so I'm out the title tournament, but I just sort of jumped in that like because like fucking like I'm doing things for a fucking laugh anymore. Like I'm like flipping. I don't need to be chasing titles or championships or anything like that. But I love a battle, and like I'll battle anyone. Like, and like at the minute I'm like having real trouble finding opponents. Like that's becoming a real problem for me, because some people are like what should we call it, like super serious and will never battle a joke guy. Some people don't want to battle on don't flop, and most of the rest I've already battled. So like I like always battle you guys. If I see someone I rate, I'll always give them a chance. I'm usually the first to give like a lot of people a chance, like to like battle someone with experience if I rate them. But what should we call it? But I was like just doing that for so long and not chasing things that like flipping I dropped out of a lot of fucking conversations. So like when people are like focused on those conversations, like it's not going to benefit them to battle me. So I don't think anyone's like, apart from Moke, fuck Moke. Like apart from Moke, like fucking I don't think anyone's like actively ducking me by not wanting to battle me. But like yeah, it's one of those, like I'll always be battling. Like I tried to retire, didn't go well, and like flipping maybe I'll like do more of these like don't flop comedy gigs, like which always do pretty well, and it ain't necessarily the content for the hardcore fans, but it's what get the casual fans in, and they usually sell out. And like fucking first time stepping on stage at a comedy place, fucking sold out, an actual comedy club, sold out fucking gig, and fucking shutting it down on a fucking Friday night. Like, most comedians have to work very hard to get there. Fucking, and I know people who've been grafting years that haven't seen a Friday yet. So it's like, so like the things that aren't really the focus of discourse and champion of the year discussions are like probably where you're like always going to find me. But as a result of that, flipping that kind of excludes me from certain other things. So I'll always be about like.
It'll always be about. There you go. That's what I like to hear. I don't want to. I'm hearing too many of the guys saying, I think I'm done, or I might not, and blah blah blah. I don't want to hear none of that. If I still want to watch you, you will not retire. I've made it a rule. I've made it a rule basically. Unless I've seen you live, you can't retire until I do now. And you're on that list as well, by the way. I haven't seen you live yet, so you ain't fucking retiring until I buy a ticket and see your wares on stage tearing it up, son.
Yeah, battle rap burnout's very fucking real. There's like fucking. I think I'm like number 6 for most battles of all time. It might be 7. Me and Hulk are always up and down, like on Verse Tracker. And Verse Tracker doesn't count things that only go on Patreon. And fucking like, I've done innumerable battles where the footage got lost or whatever. Like particularly around King of the Rolls time. So like, fucking like I'm probably like if there was an actual, like, I don't know how many battles I've done, but it's definitely close to 170. And like, but even with just the ones that Verse Tracker does count, I'm still like number 6 or 7 for most battles of all time in the UK ever. But like, I understand fucking burnout's real. Like, my problem is that I never fucking say no, I'm gonna take a year off. I've never done it. Like I've tried, but it doesn't happen. But I understand why some people just don't really get past 20 or so battles or whatever, because like, and like, that's the thing, you know, when people like want to get in this career kind of discourse, it becomes a thing of I've got here and only so many battles and all that kind of thing. And you get people wearing not having done as many battles as a badge of pride. But I don't give a fuck. Like, I've always been the guy, like, fucking, like the when we did the Cardiff event before COVID, we had a couple of no shows and that. Like, I was like, fuck it, like fucking, like, I was booked for one battle, fucking like one tryouts opponent no showed, so I said fuck it. I battled him on 10 minutes notice, and then did 2-2-on-2s like out freestyle outside afterwards. Like, I've done like 4 or 5 battles and events, like, so. I'm sure you've heard people talk about the battle rap dream. The one where, what we call it, you're at the venue and you haven't got any bars and you've got a battle. Yeah, well, I've done that in real life, multiple fucking occasions. So, like, I learned to freestyle by not prepping. Like, pretty much, like. So, because of what, like fucking, even at my like, I mean, apart from certain times where I've been like too heavily under the influence, usually because I didn't think I was battling, like flipping, like, usually if I've got any kind of like ability to think about me, I can at least entertain a crowd a bit. So at this point, like, flipping, I'm not going to experience the same burnout as someone who every battle is like flipping preparing, putting months into the most perfect shit. There's battles where I'll do that for, but if you're only ever like fucking like constantly trying to achieve that level of perfection, even if it might not come across like that to the crowd because there's different levels and you haven't got there, like, flipping, that kind of concentration on something you're not really feeling the benefit back from, that'll fucking burn you out hard.
Well, I'm sad to say that our time is drawing to a close, and there was more I wanted to ask you, but considering the nature of this conversation, I feel it's only fair to end on this note, which is on brand, which is, if you had to sell expired meds, if you had to give people one reason and one reason only to buy it, if you watching at home right now, let's say you're a gamer, let's say you're not a gamer, let's say you're a horror fan, let's say you're not a horror fan, let's say you've been moved, nay inspired by this man's story, his journey as a game developer, having applied his passion to something he clearly has a lot of resonance with and wants you to experience too. Why should they buy it? Why should they stay tuned? Why should they check it out when it goes live? Tell them. Grab them by the throats and tell them in no unnecessary terms, you must buy this game. What would you say?
Like, probably only going to be about 6 or 7 quid. Don't worry about it. Nah, but the real thing is, like, fucking, ultimately, like, you've heard this conversation. It's the culmination of a lot of things. So there's going to be things that it's similar to, there's going to be things that it's inspired by, but it's coming from a combination of influences that doesn't exist anywhere else. There's no flipping horror expert, battle rapper, coma patients working in Unreal to like bring you a story that's coming from a place where that's led to like flipping. We're going to be things are going to be happening in a slightly different way to anything you've expected. They're going to be influenced by things, but it's not just the work of someone who like did a computer science degree, got into game design, and all they've done is sit in front of a computer. This has come from all around the world. This is a guy who has won a rap battle. This has come from the first Welshman to win a rap battle in Brooklyn. This is coming from someone who has done a rap battle on acid in a basement in Minnesota. This is coming from someone who was like survived a coma and spent months in a wheelchair piecing his mind back together. This is someone who was like flipping warmed up for flipping Pendulum, DJ Hype, flipping like TC, all these amazing DJs, Goldie, like all these life experiences have like informed what this is. And there might be other people with similar crazy experiences that bring something personal to it, but not that combination. And like if you look into the backgrounds of all of like a lot of the greatest games, you find out that there's always shit that goes on there. Like even in other art forms, like I've been reading PTSD Radio, this manga, and it turns out this guy who was writing about all this cursed body horror stuff was experiencing things in real life. Like there's always going to be a bit of something else if like the artist behind it has been on a personal journey that he's putting that into it. And I've been on a journey that no one else has. So it will be an experience that you're not going to be able to get anywhere else. And it's the genesis of something greater. So if you're supporting now, the love will always be there. And I appreciate you.